Mel, ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com. Dan Dakich in for Mel. Dan just won his first ever spelling bee by correctly spelling the word cabin, which I was given the word nook, and it was N-U-Q-U-E. I want to know this. Bill Enever, jump on a microphone. Or Christine Lisi, who gave me the word nook. And I went N-O-O-K because I didn't ask language of origin. Hey. Not that I'd have gotten it right anyway.
That's your own fault right there.
I want to know what your plan was if I had gotten it right, because you knew I would miss it.
Oh, that was the whole plan. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
there was no backup plan.
Yeah, okay.
We didn't need one. We had full faith in our executing that.
Can I ask a question? N-O-Q-U-E is nook, huh?
N-U-Q-U-E.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Oh, that is.
I was looking up N-O-Q-U-E and
that's also how you spell Noka too.
In French. All right. So there you have it. Congratulations, Dan Dakich.
Well, it's my first win, and I'd like to thank the Academy and all of those that helped me get here. I look forward to many more successes in the spelling bee.
Yes. Can you spell Larry Bird?
B-Y-R-D.
Who you've been hard on. Okay, let's go. Oh, you know what? We get more lists here. Well, or not more lists, but more fun, more opinion. It's the hot list. Let's go.
The hot list.
The topic this week, Dan. It could be good, bad, individual, team, however you want to make it. But the three biggest surprises so far this Major League Baseball season. Let's go with 3, then 2, then 1. We will count it down. So how about your third biggest Major League surprise so far?
And I don't know that this is a surprise, but Ryan Braun, people like him again. And I know he's playing well. You know, he's going to make the All-Star team by the fan vote, maybe, probably. And I'm a little surprised by that. Not that because he got caught or doing what he was doing, but the way he handled the entire situation. I'm surprised that by the 1st of June, Ryan Braun is back in everybody's good graces, or a lot of people's good graces. Let's put it that way. Not everybody, certainly.
Well, you know, does part of that not deal with the fact that he's in Milwaukee? And, you know, that's a pretty nice market for him to be in right now. Genuinely nice Midwestern people. They don't hold grudges. That's a good spot for him. All right, so you go Ryan Braun's continued popularity. My number 3 is Jose Abreu, first baseman for the White Sox. I mean, what he's done, the instant success in his first year out of Cuba, maybe it shouldn't be a surprise because Yasiel Puig had that kind of success with the Dodgers last year, at least out of the gate. But Jose Abreu, on a team with no expectations, plugged in right away. There is pressure on him right away. Now, I know he's deep into a 15-day DL, should be back soon. But when he went on the DL, led the entire league, majors, in home runs and RBIs. He's been fantastic. I thought he'd be good, but he's been great for this team. And who knows, down the road, they may be playing for a wild card type of spot. And if they are, it's because of Jose Abreu. I think he's been a phenomenal story so far.
He's been the best story in baseball, I think, to this point. I mean, he's come right out and just put up ridiculous numbers. The White Sox are 500. As you said, not much there in terms of expectation. Robin Ventura, you know, he's got a team at 500, so he's doing a nice job.
Absolutely. How about your second biggest surprise, Dan Doctor?
Well, and again, I don't necessarily know that this is right or wrong, but Toronto leading the American League East, regardless of, you know, what's going on, I think Tampa Bay has a bit of a divided team, but they always seem to figure it out. They're sitting there in last. That would be the combination of those two things surprises me. When I look at the Yankees, I look at Boston, I sit there and I go, man, Toronto leading the league. I know it's early, and you know, cream rises to the top, but just looking at standings and seeing Toronto there and Tampa Bay at the bottom is shocking to me.
I agree with that. That certainly is a surprise. And good for the Blue Jays. I mean, you know, people, last year was such an unmitigated disaster for them after spending all the money making the big trade with the Marlins that good to see them succeeding this year. My second biggest surprise as we cruise along on the hot list, biggest surprises this Major League Baseball season, is another individual. It's Nelson Cruz. The Baltimore Slugger, 33 years old, given a one-year $8 million deal by the Orioles. This after being suspended for 50 games after failing performance-enhancing drug policy test with the Rangers last year. Comes back. The O's take a flyer on him, completely unaware of what they're going to get. They're throwing $8 million at a guy who had a great pass, but how much of it was performance-enhanced? And here he is, last day of May, leading the American League in homers, leading the majors in homers, leading the American League in RBIs. He's hitting .308, and he's a big part of why the Orioles are up there in the American League East behind the Blue Jays and Yankees, but just 4.5 games out. Nelson Cruz could have just faded into the sunset as an overpaid guy, a mistake by the Orioles, but instead, he's absolutely paying off for Baltimore. Nelson Cruz, big surprise for me. But now, Dan, the biggest surprise for you this entire Major League season so far.
I could be dead wrong. And this happens like every about 5 or 6 years, the Miami Marlins. I mean, you're talking about Fernandez is out. They're sitting here over 500. And when you look at MVP candidates, Stanton has to be a guy that's an MVP candidate with 16 home runs, 51 RBIs, batting .317, an on-base percentage of over 400. I look at them and I say, all right, people have told me, guys from Major League Baseball Network have told me, a very talented young team. But you know what? They're getting it done. And Stanton is a guy that I don't think a lot of people know. I mean, baseball people do, but the general fan doesn't see the Marlins all that much. You know, you remember the Marlins from a couple World Championship teams, and they, spread them out, got rid of guys. I like the story. I like the story of the Florida Marlins, and I like the story of Stanton.
He's awesome. I mean, he's just blasting home runs. I mean, he doesn't just hit a home run. These aren't creeping over the wall.
Right. You're talking about a fun guy to watch bat. He's one of those guys that I think even the other players watch. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, wow, look at this guy. And I don't know if it's that big a surprise, but I love the story. It's my favorite story so far.
Mine is not my favorite story, Dan. I'm a Dodger fan. But my best story to this point in the season is the San Francisco Giants, who completely fell apart last year. Their pitching completely went away. And that was how they'd won 2 World Series in a row, was with pitching. This year, they have not only recovered to the tune of having the 7th best ERA in all of Major League Baseball, but it's a team that has traditionally been offensively starved. They're 3rd in all of Major League Baseball in hitting. I mean, Pablo Sandoval has been the hottest hitter in Major League Baseball for the last 3 or 4 weeks. The Giants have the best record in all of Major League Baseball at 36-19. You know, I would even say this. If you wanted to go, they're the best story to me, the biggest surprise, I should say, to me. How about the whole Bay Area? They have the 2 best records in Major League Baseball. The A's are actually tied with Milwaukee and Detroit with the 2nd best record. But how about San Francisco and Oakland? What is happening in the Bay? Congratulations to all of those baseball fans. A great story so far, and a big surprise to me that the Giants have turned it around to this tune. And I knew they were good, but this good? Didn't see it coming.
Let me ask you about a Dodger question. You know, you hear this all the time. A guy comes up like Puig, and, he's hot and gets going, and then, as always happens, people get critical of him, and they say, well, you're going to find a hole in his swing. Major League Baseball pitching will catch up to him. Are you surprised at what Puig has done to this point?
Yes. Yeah, I thought that what we would see from him is somewhere in between what we saw at the beginning of last year and the end. But to be hitting .346 right now is no, I didn't see that coming. I would have bet, 310, 315 would be good. 346 at this point, 2nd in the National League. Yeah, I'm really surprised, honestly, and good for him.
Yeah, it's kind of, water kind of finds its level. Guys find the hole, and then you're going to have to adjust when you're Puig. And, you know, again, here's a guy that came over and everybody loved and then everybody criticized. I saw him the other night just scorch one to right center off the wall. He thought it was a home run. It was one of the all-time great bat flips for a double anyway.
Yeah, I don't care for that, but yeah.
But the guy has just continued to do what he does.
He launched that thing 12 feet into the air, by the way, on a double.
He did.
But then he went out and made a great play on a foul ball, you know, out and right. He's a great outfielder, too. He's more than a hitter. He's a phenomenal fielder. He's got one of the best arms in baseball. I want to go back to one of your guys, Giancarlo Stanton, real quick, because Bill Amber, our producer, sent me a note. The San Francisco Giants have the second most home runs of 450 feet or more, with 4, okay, as a team. Giancarlo Stanton has 5.
I'm telling you. He's if you haven't seen this guy play, and I, you know, again, it's hard to see them play, but I happen to catch a couple games. This guy's like he's the kind of guy, Puig is too, that you just stop and watch, period. Like if you're flipping channels and they're on, you're like, oh, I got to watch this guy. Because something special is going to happen. He's just one of those guys.
No question. He's dynamite. He's dynamite. There it is. Oh, by the way, Kurt in Des Moines, loyal listener, says his 3 biggest surprises: 1, the Brewers; 2, the disappointing Red Sox, who have won 5 in a row all of a sudden; and 3, he's in line with you, the first place Toronto Blue Jays. Straight ahead, let's get back into the National Basketball Association. A big Game 6 coming up tonight in Oklahoma City. What we're looking for between the Spurs and Thunders in a must-win game for OKC. Darian Mel, ESPN Radio. Dan Dakich in with me. Darian Mel, ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com. We are always presented by Progressive Insurance. You heard our hot list a moment ago, the 3 biggest surprises this Major League season. The hot list is brought to you by Charbroil True Infrared Grills. Visit charbroil.com/trueinfrared to learn more. Dan Dakich, I would like you to spell infrared. You spelling bee champion, you?
Give me a minute here.
No, never.
Infrared. I-N-Fur, F-E-R-R-E-D. Infrared.
How did I lose to you? Infrared. Yes.
Well, down here in Indiana, we say it infrared. Hey, can I change my hero?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Hero of the week.
Patrick Kane. How about Patrick Kane last night and the Blackhawks get a win in L.A., Game 7 in Chicago on Sunday? That's going to be unbelievable.
That right there, Dan, that 8 seconds is more than I've ever heard Mel talk about hockey.
Well,
and I'm glad you did, because I like hockey. I'm actually a Kings guy, so I would like for that series to have ended, but it didn't. But a big Game 7 coming up in Chicago.
Yeah, I love playoff hockey. I can't watch regular season hockey, but I'm a front runner. I'll watch playoff hockey. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Well, how about playoff basketball? Game 6, Western Conference Finals, San Antonio at Oklahoma City. Of course, the Thunder down 3-2, and they have to win this home game. It's a series in which every game has been a blowout. There's been very little fourth-quarter drama. It's incredibly strange how a series that is a 3-2 series has been so lopsided within its games. Home team 5-0. Well, Greg Popovich, the always interesting and phenomenal soundbite, San Antonio Spurs head coach, asked about the volatility of the series.
About 5 games, 5 blowouts. To us who don't really know the game, how do you explain that?
You're serious. You really think I can explain that?
In simplest terms. I know you can. The question is, will you?
Good Lord. Yeah. And they pay you, don't they? They pay
Very little.
That's the question.
That's why I'm not up there.
Well done. You know what? Hey, good for the reporter to hang in there with him.
No question. The reporter had a great demeanor about him, don't you think? A great voice for it and self-deprecation. You know, he wasn't intimidated. He was just asking. Dari, let me ask you a question. I've never been in a press conference where I've asked questions. I have been in Popovich's position where I've acted, kind of like a jerk. Is it, in fact, in a situation like that, intimidating to ask a guy a question that you don't know what his response is going to be, and it may get personal towards you?
That's interesting, because I have done that. I mean, for 6 years in local TV, I was in press conference rooms all the time, and dealing with different personalities, from guys who will answer any question and do it with a smile, to coaches that honestly, could be a little intimidating and, didn't necessarily care for the media, particularly local media. I remember when I was in college and I was a little, goofy reporter at Oklahoma working for a school newspaper or a school TV station. And, I was intimidated asking any question to anybody because I was just nervous in the setting. Growing up a little bit and being a professional, there were some people whose news conferences, Dan, I didn't want to sit in. There were that I just didn't care for. I didn't care for the way they treated the media. I knew they thought we were all just a bunch of dopes running around looking for a story, which wasn't always the case. I mean, we were trying to do a job, but we genuinely wanted to know answers to questions. It can be. I think it can be. Things have changed a little bit. Coming to ESPN, I still do a lot of interviews, just not in news conference settings, but dealing with a lot of the college coaches who I've got good relationships with. That's gone away completely. None of that. But, in local media, it can be nerve-wracking. And because you guys, Dan, you control the room. You, the coach, are in control. You can answer what you don't want to. You don't have to answer things. You can act like a jerk, and nobody generally is going to say anything to you. You know that you own the room. And thus, you get sometimes like Popovich,
That's 1,000% true. And I've gone 180 on it. My take now is, hey, look, you're just a basketball coach. Shut up and answer the question. I mean, seriously, that's the way I look at it now. You're not, it's a game. You're a coach. You got a whistle. You got a clipboard. Good for you. Now just answer the question and don't embarrass somebody trying to do their job is the way I look at it. Now, Popovich is from my hometown, Maryville, Indiana, and I really like the guy. But I think the halftime things have become really funny, or the after the quarter thing have become really funny. But again, I've gone 180 degrees on it.
I've changed with him because I used to think, wow, what a jerk. Honestly, I couldn't stand the guy because of those interviews. When it changed for me was when he gave the great answer to Craig Sager's brother, who was filling in for
his son.
Who was filling in for Craig when Craig is undergoing treatment, and he was fantastic with him. And then it kind of changed in my eyes because now, when he's giving the answer or the lack of an answer, he does it with a little smirk. Now he's just messing with you.
Right.
Now it's a sense of humor thing. I'm with you. I actually kind of like it. But you know what? Your buddy Bob Knight was a guy that when I was in local media, I had to ask him some questions once when he was at Texas Tech and he was in Stillwater, and I didn't. I'll be honest with you. I didn't want to ask him a question. I didn't really want to go talk to him.
Hey, I didn't want to go to work every day.
All right, lots more coming right up. Clippers sold. Dari and Mel, ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com. Dan Dakich in for Mel Kiper. We are, as always, presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests appear via the Subway Fresh Take hotline. The Clippers, Dan Dakich, the Los Angeles Clippers, not the Lakers, not the Dodgers, but this franchise that, and I tweeted this the other night. I said, if you are over 15 years old, can you believe that the L.A. Clippers have sold for $2 billion. And I say that because anybody 15 or under thinks the Clippers have always been good. You know, but we remember well that they were the biggest joke of the NBA. If the NBA was ever going to contract, it would be the Clippers that they knocked out. $2 billion. Steve Ballmer, former Microsoft CEO, $2 billion bid to buy the Clippers is subject to approval from the league's owners. It will happen. And all of a sudden they will be out of the Sterling's control. I think everybody's happy about that. Ballmer's a Seattle guy who says he's going to keep it in this team in L.A., which is obviously important for the folks down there, but probably a little bit of it doesn't help Seattle's bid to get an NBA team. We can talk about that, too, in a little bit. I feel that that's not a shot at Seattle, but I think that kind of dings them up a little bit. But what did you think when you heard $2 billion for the Clippers?
I thought, first off, the first rule in real estate is location, location, location. That's, L.A. sold a lot of that. I was stunned, and I was stunned from the standpoint of historically awful, number 2 in your own city. That's just basketball. That's not, you're about number 6 in your own city. You share a gym with another team. I don't know the logistics behind it, obviously. We don't know all the financials behind it. But when I looked at $2 million, I thought location, and I thought, my goodness, what are the Yankees worth? What are the Red Sox worth? What are the Dodgers worth? I mean, if these guys go, because again, you're right. I mean, for years and years and years, this organization has been an absolute laughingstock and an embarrassment in a lot of ways to the NBA. And you know what? If they can get $2 billion, what are the Lakers worth?
And that's the question. I mean, what are the Lakers? What are the Yankees? What are the Dodgers? I mean, we know the Dodgers are worth $2 billion, right? That's what Magic Johnson and his group paid for, $2.1 billion to it. The other thing I thought was, remember when we thought it was, that a month or two ago, it was a lot of money when the Milwaukee Bucks sold for $550 million. Now, they look like a CBA team, selling for $550. That's nothing compared to $2 billion for the Los Angeles Clippers. And then the Sterling family is going to get some serious money in this, which is, it's just an unfortunate fact. It is. They bought this team for $12.5 million. In 1981? That's a pretty good profit, I would say, there.
And they're suing for another $1 billion, supposedly. So, I hate to put it this way, but it's a win-win for everybody, right? I mean, the Sterlings get $2 billion or whatever their cut's going to be. The NBA gets rid of the Sterlings. Ballmer gets a team. Whether or not that, what contractually he can do with the team is going to be interesting. You mentioned Ballmer as a Seattle guy, and that certainly, whether it's public or not, would have to be in play at some level. So, ultimately, who's the loser in this? The players got what they wanted. They wanted Sterling's out. So it happened quickly. Well, so I guess it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, except Seattle. And I'll say this. I'm sensitive to Seattle because of the way that the Sonics left. I'm a Thunder guy, and I became a Thunder guy the second that an NBA team went into my home state because I grew up thinking it would be the coolest thing to have a major pro sports team in Oklahoma. And I jumped on the wagon the second it was announced. But at the same time, have gotten to know many, many Seattleites, including the guys behind the documentary Sonics Gate, which is just fantastic and very well and professionally done. I felt bad about the way it happened for Seattle because I knew Clay Bennett's history in Oklahoma City, and I knew that the second he bought any team, hockey or basketball, because he would have bought a hockey team too, or instead, that team was going to go to Oklahoma in some way, at some point. So I feel bad for Seattle. In Seattle, there have been 2 guys that have been looking at buying an NBA team, either relocating one or being behind the purchase for an expansion team. Steve Ballmer is one. The other is a guy by the name of Chris Hansen. But from what I understand, most of Hansen's group has kind of disappeared. And now he can't necessarily do it by himself. So Ballmer was the guy in play. Now, he tried to buy Sacramento and move them. Didn't work. I'm glad for Sacramento it didn't work. But now he has a team. Now he says he's not leaving L.A. with the Clippers. And if he's true to his word there, then I think Seattle has lost their best financial option to get a team back there. And if that's the case, I think that's a shame. So if you say, is there a loser in this? I would say maybe for now the city of Seattle is. And I think it's too bad.
I'm glad you put in the for now. Because common sense tells me Ballmer already wanted to move one team. You mentioned Sacramento. Now he has a team to move that it would not. I mean, it would affect L.A., but it wouldn't affect L.A. having a team, obviously. So I actually look at it the other way. I look at it as if there is a team that's going to move and is ripe for a move, and it's not going to be Sacramento, then it would have to be the Clippers. I, again, don't know leases. I don't know backgrounds of financials. But if you just look at it on the surface, two teams, one city, okay. A guy who has already stated a desire to get a team into that next city, which is Seattle, and now he has a team. So it's better for Seattle right now, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, than it was before Ballmer had a team, because he would still be searching for that particular team to even have the option to move it to Seattle.
Well, that's a great point. Now, that is a great point. So, yeah, no. So now the Seattle guy is in control of a team.
Yes.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I see your point there. I guess I'm only going by he has gone on record saying he would not move them. Now, if he's true to his word, then now you've got one of your big money guys in Seattle that's been looking for a team, has a team that he's not moving. If he's true to his word. It all depends on if he's true to his word. I remember Clay Bennett bought the Sonics, and he said, I don't want to leave Seattle. He said all of these things. Now, anybody in Oklahoma that knew anything about Clay Bennett knew otherwise, but he said, I don't want to leave. But then he said, we can't play at Key Arena. We need a new arena, but we're not going to pay anything for the new arena. And he put a price tag on this arena that he knew that after Seattle paid for a stadium for the Seahawks and a stadium for the Mariners, that they would not publicly finance an arena for the Sonics. He knew it. He'd researched it. He said, this is the only way it's going to happen. It got shot down as expected. And he said, well, look, I tried. But no, you really didn't. And that's, and that's a shame for Seattle. If Ballmer moves them, they win. If he doesn't and he stays true to his word, then it's a loss. I guess it could go either way, Dan.
Who is the last guy that, and again, I think you'd have to read into what Ballmer said in terms of keeping the Clippers there. But who's the last guy in sports that at a high-profile level with an obvious move, you actually believed what they said? I mean,
well, yeah.
And that's a bad way to look at the world. I'm looking at it jaded and cynical. I get that, but somewhat realistically as well.
That's a good point. Let me, yeah. And so choose whether or not you believe Steve Ballmer here, but I'll read you what he has quoted. I love basketball, and I intend to do everything in my power to ensure that the Clippers continue to win and win big in Los Angeles. L.A. is one of the world's great cities, a city that embraces inclusiveness in exactly the same way the NBA and I embrace inclusiveness. So he also has said, if I get interested in the Clippers, this was earlier in the month, the Wall Street Journal asked him, would you not move them to Seattle if you bought them? He said, if I get interested in the Clippers, it would be for Los Angeles. I don't work anymore, so I have more geographic flexibility than I did a year and a half ago. Moving them anywhere else would be value destructive. That's what Steve Ballmer had said a month ago before he purchased or agreed to purchase the Clippers.
What I heard in that, the only thing I heard in that was the word intend. Mm-hmm. I intend. Whenever I hear intend, I immediately hear, he has an out. That's, again, I am jaded. I am cynical. Here's the answer. I will absolutely not move the Clippers. I bought the Clippers to live in L.A., to have them to have them live in L.A., play in L.A., there's absolutely no chance I move this team anywhere.
Yeah,
anything other than that,
or you sign something
blah, blah,
in your
blah.
purchase agreement that says, I will not move this team. This team will. This team is tied to Los Angeles for the next 30 years, whatever it is.
It's like this, Dari, and maybe this is why I'm divorced. I used to tell my kids, what do you hear when you hear mommy talk? Blah, 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 blah.
I can't imagine that is good for a marriage. I cannot imagine that going over well when kid then goes to mommy and says, do you know what daddy said?
I would also imagine this. I would imagine the NBA will not allow Ballmer to move the team. That is coming to me from a great source right now on my text, via text.
Oh, really? Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Breaking news. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, would you do me a favor and send me one of your business cards that says Dan Dakich, marriage counselor? I just want to frame that. All right, Dan Dakich in from Dari and Mel, ESPN Radio. Well, Dan, you've been outspoken about the David Price. You called him a hero of the week for firing at Big Papi. A brawl between the Rays and Red Sox. Just one of a couple of problems, perhaps, that Major League Baseball has. We'll get into an interesting look at the MLB straight ahead. Dari Nowkhah and Dr. Dakich, ESPN Radio.
Hey.
Price from the stretch for the first pitch to Ortiz, and it hit him. David gets hit by the pitch, and the home plate umpire, Dan Bellino's going to issue warnings. Are you kidding me? Dan Bellino coming out and issuing warnings right away.
A little bit of drama last night between the Rays and the Red Sox. Dari and Mel, ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com. We remind you, by the way, celebrate summer birthdays with a smile. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN for flowers and gifts starting at $29.99 for special offers. Dan, you talked about this earlier. You gave some props to David Price for the plunk of David Ortiz. Benches were warned. Then we had more fireworks a little bit later. 2 Red Sox coaches were thrown out of this game. In the end, the Red Sox, by the way, beat the Rays on it was a crazy night at Fenway, but 3-2 there. A.J. Pierzynski triple in the 10th. Drove in Johnny Gomes to win that game. But, it's part of baseball, right? We talk about the NBA. You mentioned this earlier, where you can't deliver a hard foul without maybe being suspended. A lot of the physicality has been gone from that game. What about baseball? And Papi, he says, look, let's listen to David Ortiz. He says, we know that getting thrown out was retribution for knocking them out of the playoffs last year, and he says that's not right. Here he is.
Last year, we kicked his in the playoff. He went off about everybody. First at bat of the season against him, he drilled me. That means it's a war. It's on.
Yeah, that's what he said. It's a war. WDAE, by the way, on the call there that you heard earlier. You're okay with this. This is part of baseball. This is part of baseball as the home run or the 4-pitch walk. I mean, this is baseball.
Well, there's 2 sides of it. We heard Papi's side. David Price said, you know what, I got a bunch of lefties I'm facing. Price is a lefty. I got to go inside. And so, yeah, it is. Look, one of the things that I was very critical of Barry Bonds about was that if you looked at Barry Bonds at bat, he had body armor on the right side of his body, which takes the fear factor of getting hit out of it. Well, the fear factor of getting hit is a huge part of baseball, whether you're a kid playing or you're a major leaguer, particularly when you're a lefty facing a guy like David Price who brings it at 97, 98. So he goes inside, according to him. He hits Papi, and, Papi gives his explanation. And my answer is, okay, let's say you're right. Okay. then what? Okay, it's on. What does that mean? What was that? You know, I always wonder, Dari, this is going to sound crazy, right? If I'm a batter and I think a guy threw at my head, not at my legs, but at my head, how about the next pitch? Why don't batters ever do this? Why doesn't the next pitch, the bat go flying out of your hands towards the mound? Like, I always thought, if I'm mad at a guy throwing at me, legitimately mad, the only thing I've got to throw at him is the bat. So I'm not advocating it. I just wonder why it doesn't ever happen.
This would be the first thing that went into my head was because I don't want him to grab the bat and come my way.
Okay.
See, a baseball goes to the backstop, and the hitter doesn't have a chance to go or into the catcher's mitt. The hitter doesn't have a chance to, and unless it really hits him and just thuds to the ground, the hitter's not going to be able to pick it up and fire back. You throw a bat, now you have not. If you miss, okay, fine. The shortstop gets it, or the second baseman gets it. And you really don't want that because they swing a bat better than the pitcher does. I wouldn't put the weapon in his hand.
You know, it's Dari, when I was in high school, we were going to a high school basketball game, and a friend of mine who had never gone with us brought a gun, right? He's got his little gun. And I looked at him, I go, hey, dummy, what are you going to do with that gun? Well, you know, just in case. I go, really? I go, what's going to happen is whoever's mad at you is going to take the gun and shoot you with it. So just put the gun away. The best move to do is to put the bat away. I get it, but because somebody may take it from you and use it on you. But to me, baseball, part of it is throwing inside. Part of it is retribution. Part of it is establishing the inside of the plate for a left hand, and part of it is a little bit of fear that I might get hit. It's just part of it.
This is two things. One, at 11:30 Eastern Time, 35 minutes or so from now, Robin Ventura, manager of the Chicago White Sox, is going to join us on the show today. We're going to talk to him about this, too. He's been a part of a brawl before. We remember one very well with Nolan Ryan. But, you know, I would love to know what's going through the mind of a hitter the first time or when you realize this dude just threw at me. Whether he hit you or not, you know he threw at you. The second thing you said is he brought a little gun. That's like a little concussion. You don't have a...
I know.
A gun is a gun.
I know. And I just remember it being really little, and I was sitting in the back seat, and I'm like, man, what are you doing?
It's a little...
This is the first time I'd ever seen a gun.
A little gun. You have any other issues with baseball? Tom Perducci, by the way, wrote a great article, an Sports Illustrated article on pace of play.
Oh, I got thoughts on that.
Yeah, in the last 10 years, you've added 29 minutes and 11 seconds of dead time to a game, and you're scoring 13% fewer runs. That's a bad trend, Dan.
Yeah.
That's a bad trend.
Can I tell you what I look at when I go to a baseball game, no matter what level?
Yes.
Parents, teach your kid when he pitches to catch the ball on the mound. Meaning Greg Maddux used to throw it, get back on the rubber, catch it, throw it again. Mm-hmm. Don't walk. Anytime I see anybody walking around on the grass, I lose my collective mind.
I love it. I do. I think that's a great call. That's a great call. Dorian Mel on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance, comparing rates to help you save. Now, that's Progressive. Call or click today and find out how much Progressive could save you. Pacers, done, destroyed, embarrassed in Game 6. What they're saying in Indiana. Dan's in Indiana. He's going to tell us. It's ESPN Radio. Dorian Mel, ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, taking you to noon Eastern Time. Dan Dakich in for Mel. I like this final hour. We are at 11:15 Eastern, so in 15 minutes, we're going to bring in former Indians and Nationals manager Manny Acta, of course, an ESPN Baseball Tonight analyst, get his take on the season, but also on what happened last night at Fenway. David Ortiz gets hit. In the end, there are 3 ejections, I think, all from the Red Sox. But kind of the approach to managing and what he thinks really happened there. Did David Price throw at Ortiz, or do we believe for a second what he was saying with, I got all these lefties and I need to throw inside on them? Then after that, in half an hour, we've got Robin Ventura. manager of the Chicago White Sox. We can ask him the same types of questions, which I'm looking forward to, and then we'll make our final prediction on Game 6 tonight from Oklahoma City. We'll do that at the end of the show. But last night, Dan, your hometown, Indiana Pacers, got knocked out in somewhat embarrassing fashion by the Miami Heat. Now, I know that you may not know what the city is saying this morning because you've been with me all morning, but what is the feel of this team, of Frank Vogel, of Larry Bird, and of the future in Indiana? What are they saying?
Well, let's go the future first. I think that's a little bit up in the air. Do you keep this team together, Dari, or do you blow it up? We talked about Lance Stevenson. You know, he's an unrestricted free agent. His agent came out today and said he's going to have a ton of suitors. $10, $12 million a year guy, which is not surprising because let's face it. I mean, nobody throws around bad contracts more than NBA general managers. They're ridiculous in how they give out their money. In terms of Frank Vogel, I think people have real questions. You know, he's a nice guy, and as much as people like to complain when a coach is too tough, the state of Indiana is used to Bob Knight, Gene Cady, guys that were really tough coaches that held people accountable. I think the feeling is that Frank didn't do that. There's also the feeling that I share that Frank's done a heck of a job and that Larry Bird's the guy that really needs to take a look in the mirror. They had a team that was rolling throughout half the season. Then just before the All-Star break, the rumors started circulating that Danny Granger was going to get traded, Orlando Johnson was going to be let go. And both of those things happened. Andrew Bynum was brought in. Evan Turner was brought in, neither of whom even, Bynum got kicked off the team about halfway through the Atlanta series. Evan Turner was not a factor at all in the Miami series. In fact, didn't play. And then, you're looking backwards, Dari. They brought in Chris Copeland from the Knicks, gave him a free agent contract, and never played him. I mean, he was a non-factor for 82 regular season games and every playoff game. So I think, and again, it's blasphemy to criticize Larry Bird here in the state of Indiana, and I better check my car or look underneath before I get in it this evening or this afternoon. But it's blasphemy. But you got to look at Bird and say, what are you doing? You took a risk. He admitted he was taking a risk, and it failed miserably. So you got to look at him as well.
Do you have a gut feeling either way about whether Vogel's coaching this team next year?
I have a gut feeling, and my gut feeling is when Bird et al. Go all in, very public all in, and you don't achieve it, Bird is going nowhere, Kevin Pritchard's going nowhere, Donnie Walsh is going nowhere. Vogel, I would believe, would have to answer for that, unfortunately for Frank, and I think Frank will end up as a head coach somewhere else. I think it depends on what they want to. Larry Bird has said, and this is what complicates it a little bit, Dari. Larry Bird has said a NBA coach has a shelf life of maybe 3 to 4 years max. That's it. That players will listen to him. That's why he got out of coaching after 3 years. So my guess, gun to head, I would have to say that Vogel will not be coaching it. But man, I hope he is, because I think he got a raw deal with the moves that Bird et al. Made. Around the All-Star break. I really do. And bringing in Andrew Bynum was a complete train wreck. That helped absolutely nothing.
Will there be a little gun?
Oh, I got a big head. I got a size 8, so it would have to be a bazooka-type gun.
Dari Noka, Dan Dakich with you here, Dari and Mel, ESPN Radio. All right, so now, yes, the franchise that is in your city is a mess. There are changes that will happen, that have to happen. But now let's look at the actual team that is going to the NBA Finals, the Miami Heat. Given the lack of consistent competition that they got in the Eastern Finals, what did you learn about the Heat in this series? And what, if you're Eric Spoelstra, what do you like and what do you not like from what you've seen from your team? Is there anything that is in that not like category?
Well, I think they have let off the gas. They didn't last night, but at other times they have let off the gas and they've gotten off to slow starts. And, the Pacers even last night got up 9-2, and it looked like the Pacers were going to roll a little bit. And then Lance Stevenson went into his act and woke everybody in the gym up. But I think that's one thing. I think what you like is look at the contributions they got. You know, Rashard Lewis hardly played, if he even did play, in the first couple playoff series. And now look at 5 threes in Game 5. I mean, he's been a guy that not only has made shots, but he was good enough to stay in front of David West. You know, David West hit jump shots, but when David West tried to go to the rim, he couldn't get over him. So, and Norris Cole's been sensational. I think you'd have to like that. And, you know, let's face it, the Heat are going to go as James goes and the guys around him can make shots. And Rashard Lewis, you know, looks a little bit like this year's Mike Miller. And I also thought, I think you said this earlier, Dari, I thought Ray Allen's looked pretty good as well.
He has. He's Ray Allen. I mean, he's exactly what we all know he is, but he's just so dang consistent and clutch doing it, knocking down the threes. Now you put him with Rashard Lewis. Rashard Lewis in the last 2 games is 9 for 16 from 3. So now you got Lewis, who can hit at any time. Allen, who can obviously, he's one of the best three-point shooters, maybe the best in the history of the league, can hit at any time. Those, oh, by the way, are not Wade and LeBron. I mean, how do you begin to defend them when they do that? You're right. The Mike Miller thing, that's exactly right. Because I'm picturing, you know, or Shane Battier, who on occasion can hit a big shot. They've got the stars. We knew this is how the team would be built. We knew they'd spend all the money on those 3, and then, you know, we thought actually that they'd have a bunch of other okay guys. But those guys that are okay are a little better than okay. And they have incredibly well-defined roles, and they execute them to perfection most of the time.
Let me give you one other thing that I love, and they play hard. I mean, you mentioned Battier. You know, Battier's diving out of bounds. You saw yesterday something else that was really interesting. And I don't know if you caught this. It went around a little bit on Twitter, a lot on Twitter, actually. But Udonis Haslem, what he said to Stevenson after he was messing with LeBron James, you know, there was an expletive in there, and he said, "I'll mess you up." And Udonis Haslem sticking up for James is interesting, just because Udonis Haslem's been in the league for so long and has seen basically every scenario. It kind of tells you the respect that everybody on that team has for one another, not just for LeBron, but for one another. And Dari, I go back to this. There's some guys in the NBA that play really hard, but I don't think anybody plays harder than LeBron James. And lastly, Dari, I thought the Heat, and if you're Eric Spoelstra, you got to love this. I thought the Heat looked like the team in this series that was chasing the ring, and the Pacers looked like the complacent, lazy team that already had rings.
That's a maturity thing, too.
Right? It is.
That's a big-time maturity indication.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get into baseball here coming up. Former manager of the Indians and the Nationals, Manny Acta, ESPN Baseball Tonight analyst, going to join us. Much to discuss about the season, but also last night at Fenway Park, the manager's approach to retribution. What does he think David Price was doing? Intentionally throwing at Poppy? Or was he simply trying to get inside and let one get away? We'll get into all that coming up with Manny Acta. After that, White Sox manager Robin Ventura going to join us. Dari Nowkhah, Dan Dakich. It's ESPN Radio.
Hey, it's
Dari and Mel, ESPN Radio. Dan Dakich in for Mel Kiper. Robin Ventura, third-year manager of the Chicago White Sox, going to join us coming up in about 15 minutes. A great 16-year playing career. Oh, by the way, his alma mater off to a good start. The NCAA baseball tournament. Oklahoma State won yesterday. The White Sox with one of the great, you're certainly Rookie of the Year front runner in the American League, Jose Abreu. They'll be getting him back soon. So plenty to discuss with Robin and also about what we saw last night there at Fenway Park between the Rays and the Red Sox. When David Price hit Big Poppy, then later hit a second batter. I believe it was Mike Karp. Did not get ejected. He'd been previously warned. He did not get ejected when he hit Karp, and that's the batter that he hit when he said, look, I was just trying to pitch inside. and one got away. So anyway, the anatomy of showing your manliness in a baseball way, throwing inside, hitting somebody, when you rush the mound. Robin Ventura, I love the opportunity to get to talk to him about that, and also to talk to Manny Acta about it, ESPN Baseball Tonight analyst and former manager of the Indians and Nationals. Manny, we appreciate the time. What is the decision there? Do you think Price threw at Papi because of the postseason last year, as Papi suggests? Was there anything else to it? What goes into that decision? And is it a unilateral David Price decision, or did that come from the dugout?
It does not come from the dugout. I can tell you that much. And it does look like it was based on what happened last year during the playoffs. Because if it was based on last week, unless he really want to zero in on David and send a message and say we're hitting the biggest guy and all that, he had a better opportunity of hitting Pedroia, who was up at the plate with 2 outs and nobody on, which is the best time to hit a guy because the risk of allowing runs is a lot lower. So I have to think that it had to do with last year's issue, and it's absolutely a player's decision. That really it's not mandated by the manager.
So Papi reacting the way he did, you can understand it. Well,
he took it like a man and went to first base, and basically didn't react to it up until things escalated. I think he kind of knew it right away because David, he's got John Farrell set up for the game. He's got pinpoint control. And it looked pretty clear. It was the first pitch, and, they had their issues last year. So, but I understand why he's mad. Absolutely.
Manny Acta, former manager of the Indians and Nationals and current ESPN Baseball Tonight analyst, joining us. Dari Nowkhah, Dan Dakich on ESPN Radio. Then he hit Mike Carp in the fourth and did not get ejected. And that was a situation where the umpire said it was inside, but I did not feel that it was intentional. Are you in line with that decision?
Yeah. To everybody was pretty clear that he didn't hit him intentionally. And a lot of people are confused here. Just because there's a warning in place doesn't mean that as soon as the pitcher hits somebody, he's got to get thrown out of the game. It was not intentional, but they were mad already because of the Ortiz incident, and also because of the fact that the warning was put right away, and they didn't have a chance to retaliate. And to me, the issue with the game yesterday was MLB kind of trusted them instead of putting a warning before the game, thinking that 3-4 days in between series would cool them off and nothing would have happened. And also not to hinder the managers of the way of the game was going to be played, because it's very uncomfortable to start a game under a warning right away. But it kind of backfired. And the issue here is if you have a warning in place, then David probably would have been thrown out right away. If you had the warning, he wasn't going to hit David. I don't think so. And then if you don't have the warning, once you hit Ortiz, the best thing to do is at least allow the Red Sox to retaliate. And then you put the warning on and everybody's at peace. But that wasn't the case, and that was why John Farrell and the Red Sox reacted that way, because it's basically, hey, now I don't have a shot to retaliate, and it's not fair.
Hey, Manny, what's the difference between the Red Sox now during this 5-game winning streak and when they just got done with a long losing streak? You see any difference?
Well, the pitching's been better, and that's the key. I mean, you can say what you want to say, but even if it's been 4 or 5 days, it's been better. The pitching is just really, really bad right now. I think it's 25th in the league, and the Buchholz situation has really got them where they're at right now, and also Peavy has been struggling over the last few outings, and they got to get it going. And you know, it's a long roller coaster. That's what people tend to forget at times, and I know that we do have to react to it daily and weekly and all that, but You can see it right now. They got a 5-game winning streak, and it's a good ball club. They can do that at any time. And there's going to be another time where before the season's over where they're going to look to a little struggle again. But they have to make sure it's not another long streak because they're falling behind.
ESPN Major League Baseball analyst Manny Acta joining us here. You know, Dan and I were talking earlier today. We gave our biggest surprises to this point in the season. Could be an individual, Manny. Could be a team, whether it's positive or negative. What is the biggest surprise to you thus far now at the end of the month of May this season?
The Toronto Blue Jays, because, you know, they let me down last year. I picked them to win the division, and I was counting on guys like Morrow and Johnson and Dickey to pretty much compete for Cy Young, the three of them. Well, you know, Josh Johnson didn't pitch well at all. He got hurt. Morrow didn't pitch well, and Dickey struggled too. And then they come to this year, and a couple of those guys are not even there, and I'm thinking, you know, Burley's 1 year older, and they got a couple of kids in the rotation, and this is not gonna it's not gonna turn out well again. And you know, that offense has really taken off, and some of those kids in the rotation, like Hutchinson, have thrown the ball very well, and then Burley has been unbelievable so far. So they have surprised me, and I'm kind of mad because I picked them last year and they let me down.
How surprised are you that Yasiel Puig has remained as consistent and as good as he has been this year?
Well, it's been surprising how fast he has learned at the big league level the art of hitting it and making adjustments. That's been, you know, unbelievable how he pretty much every month has gotten better of laying off of pitches out of the strike zone, and you know, he hasn't gotten into any pull mode type of streak. He uses the whole field, and it's impressive. So that tells you something. It's that down the road he's going to be able to get a grasp on the fundamental part of the game, which you know, it's right now his only downfall, missing cut-off man and the base running deal. But if he's able to catch and to cut up with the hitting thing at the big league level and make so many adjustments so quick, and then he tells you that it's just a matter of time because this one guy who got rushed to the big league space based on his hitting ability. So it's been impressive.
Manny, thank you so much. We appreciate the time.
All right, guys, take it easy.
Robin Ventura, manager of the White Sox, coming up. It's ESPN Radio. Dari and Mel, ESPN Radio. Mel Kiper on vacation. Dan Dakich is in for Mel today. Going to get into Game 6 tonight. Spurs Thunder. We'll give our predictions on that coming up in about 15 minutes. Right now, though, very happy to be joined by the third-year manager of the Chicago White Sox, a team sitting at 28-28 to this point in the season. Robin Ventura joining us here via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. And, Coach, we're really, really glad to have you with us. You guys are certainly hanging around, and I know there's some excitement around your team right now in the Windy City. As you see the first 56 games here, what's the biggest thing about your team that jumps out to you?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we're surviving some injuries, and we've had some guys go down early in the year, you know, a few DL stints for some important guys, and we're, you know, still competing, still finding ways to score runs and stay in these games, and you know, just keep it within reach. I think that's the biggest thing is these guys compete. They can score late, so it's been fun to watch these guys, you know, go after it, even though some of the guys have been on the DL for a while, and one of them's Jose Abreu.
Abreu's been on the deal, but so is Danston Sale. How important is it those two guys coming back?
It's really, I mean, anytime you get your ace back, you know, you give yourself a shot in the arm, and I think that's part of it is these guys come back. You expect to win those games when they pitch, and, you know, they can alleviate some losing streaks and things like that, but it also helps out the other guys, I think, with innings and helping out the bullpen.
Robin Ventura, manager of the White Sox, joining us. You mentioned Jose Abreu, and I mean, it's hard not to look at his production in year one coming over from Cuba and comparing it to Yasiel Puig and what he did out of the gate for the Dodgers last year. But, I mean, you can compare it all you want. It's still just phenomenal. When do you expect to get him back, and how do you explain the instant success in year one in the majors for Jose so far?
Well, we hope to get him back Monday. He's still, inching his way back, and things look like they're on target for Monday as of right now. But as far as him coming over, I mean, you could tell right away he was a good player and a good hitter. But, once you drop him in the middle of a lineup, it just becomes, you become more dangerous for Juan. But, he's not a 19-year-old rookie. He's had some international experience. I think you go by the precedent set by some of the other Cubans that have come over, one of them, being Cespedes, the other one would be Puig. But, for us, it's just really changed the dynamic of our lineup, having him in there and putting him right in the middle of the lineup. So just a talented hitter with a lot of power, but he's also a really good professional hitter, I think is the best way to describe him, is that he can hit the ball all over the park, and he's a tough out.
To that point, we hear all the time, well, second time, third time around against the same pitchers, they're going to figure him out, find the holes. What do you expect out of him when that kind of thing hits? Does he have the kind of swing that holds up against adjustments?
Well, I think that's the biggest thing, is he does have a swing that holds up. He's not, wildly swinging at everything. He's not just a pull hitter. He does stay inside the baseball. And, for a guy like that's stuff that holds up when you see the kind of swing that he has and the coverage that he really has from the inside part of the plate to the outside, that you expect that to hold up, and to be able to hit the ball out of the ballpark the other way is stuff with some staying power.
Robin Ventura, manager of the White Sox, joining us here via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Robin, I know you guys were obviously playing, but I don't know if you saw last night any of the highlights maybe of it, the Red Sox and the Rays, and David Price hits David Ortiz right out of the gate, and then later hit another batter, and you end up with a bit of a brawl there. You've been on both sides of this as a player, as a manager now. I think it's interesting to get your insight. We were just talking to Manny Acta, and I asked him, I said, does a manager in any way, shape, or form ever really dictate when to throw at a guy? And he said, absolutely not. What is it goes into the mindset of something like that, whether you feel there's retribution needed or whatever it may be? How would you explain that?
Well, I haven't seen what happened last night with them, but it's as far as being a manager, these guys, they're the ones that are out there playing, and you don't necessarily get involved in that kind of stuff. So, emotions run high, and I think guys, protect their own teammates, and they all have their own ideas about how to do that. So, as a manager, you're trying to keep everybody focused on winning the game, and that's the important part. But, these guys all protect each other, and that's part of being a teammate. And, as a manager, you really don't have control over that.
Coach, you're sitting here 500. I don't know the expectations were great coming in, but you have a staff that's pitched great the last 10 times out. You have a young talent. Ramirez is hitting the ball really well for you. What do you expect as you move forward in this season?
Well, hopefully we get, once we get everybody back, that, the spark in the offense that we had early, I think that's been the biggest thing for us, is we're able to score runs. Last year we just couldn't get over the hump of being able to score runs. If we fell behind early in a game, we didn't have a chance to, or the wherewithal to make it back. And I don't think we had that kind of attack, where this year it just seems, our offense is a little more potent, to where you can stay in games, you can find yourself, close enough to make a run at them late. And, everybody else, as far as the bullpen and the pitchers, we've been able to, weather the storm of injuries, and guys have stepped up. So we do have some guys that are making a name for themselves, and with an opportunity that they might not have gotten had we not had some injuries.
Robin Ventura joining us. Robin, I'm going to take you back a little ways here. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and loved college baseball. And I remember you so well at Oklahoma State.
You're not that old. You're not that old.
No, but I'm 37, so I'm really not going back that far.
Okay.
Yes, but I remember you very well. Those teams, the Oklahoma State teams, coached by Gary Ward, and what you guys were able to do in the postseason. But a 58-game hit streak at OSU, it was still a record, remarkable. How much do you still pay attention to them? And I'm immersed right now at ESPNU in the college baseball regionals. and they won last night. How much are you able to pay attention to Oklahoma State baseball, and how much do you still kind of hold dear to your past there in Stillwater?
Oh, I hold it dear. I mean, I think it's a fun experience. I was lucky enough to do the College World Series once I retired, and it became my favorite thing to do, just because I think it's a little hidden gem of a tournament that, you know, if you like college baseball, it's really the place to go, and it's such a great event. I think Omaha does a great job of putting it on. ESPN's always done a great job of covering it, but I do get to pay attention and see a lot of information, just news on Oklahoma State. Josh Holliday, who his dad was my pitching coach, Matt Holliday's brother is now the coach. He had gone there. They grew up in Stillwater, so I'm able to really, keep in contact and see what's going on there. And I'm proud of him. I mean, he took over a program that wasn't necessarily all that great, and he's got them in the hunt. They got a regional this year, and you're able to pay attention to it. And he's really one of those guys that's kind of connected to the past. So it's been fun for the guys that have played there before, and the guys through the 80s that were there through the Ward era, that you can reconnect and watch them and cheer for them.
How many times did you get intentionally walked with Incaviglia behind you?
I actually didn't play with Pete. I was a year after him. After him. So I would imagine a lot of people got intentionally walked, or Pete got intentionally walked, no matter who was batting in front of him or behind him. He was that good of a hitter. But I know a lot of people think I actually played with Pete, but I was a year behind him.
I thought it was you, Incaviglia, and then Will Clark and the rest over at Mississippi State during the same era.
No, I was Pete had left. He got drafted in 85, and I came in 86. So I was there 86, 87, 88.
Now, let's see, Robin, was there Brad Beanblossom, Monty Ferris? I'm trying to think of some of those names.
Yeah, we had Jeremy Burnitz was there at the time, my last year. So we had a good offense. It was a fun time to be there and play. I think that's you kind of end up there at a good moment in time, and I was lucky enough to be there then.
Robin Ventura, manager of the White Sox. We appreciate your time with us this morning on the radio, and best of luck to the White Sox the rest of the way, Robin. Thank you.
All right, I appreciate it.
He said it. I'm telling you, Dan, and if Indiana gets back to Omaha, go. He's exactly right. I'd never been to the College World Series until I lived in Nebraska in 2000 and 2001, and I went to both of those. It's still, I think, at the top of anything that I've covered. It is the greatest event with the passion, the fans, the weather. It's in the middle of the summer. Omaha's a great town for this. I'm telling you, if your Hoosiers go, you passed it up last year. Don't do it again. Dan, go to Omaha.
Yeah, I need to. Let me ask you this, your thoughts on this quote from Robin Ventura. I wanted to ask him, Jeter, all the celebrations about Jeter, right? You know what Robin Ventura said?
What?
He's not dying.
That's very fair. That's a very true statement. And also Joe Girardi, who did not, what was it? I don't remember who it was. Was it the Cubs maybe? One of the teams was doing a Jeter celebration, but he didn't start him. And he said, it's not my job. I'm not running a Derek Jeter retirement parade. Something to that extent. I messed up the quote, but it's something like that. I agree. We love Derek Jeter. Everybody loves Derek Jeter. All right, enough said. We're going to pick Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals coming up. Also, your Chicago Cubs, I don't know if you've run across this, but they are auctioning off something because somebody's butt was sitting in it. Yeah, I kid you not. It's ESPN Radio.
Off the blast, the screen of Duncan pulls up, fires over Adams, got it. Tony Parker in the paint, probing and punishing.
Showed you the ball, gave you the rocker step, took it back, created a little space and got it up.
Kevin Calabro on ESPN Radio there. Tony Parker in Game 5 helping lead the Spurs to a whipping of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Dari Noka, Dan Dakich with you. Dan in for Mel. Dari and Mel, ESPN Radio. I'm always kind of interested and would love to talk to him sometime than to Kevin Calabro, who's doing these games for ESPN Radio, because he was the longtime voice of the Seattle Supersonics. And I don't know if TV or radio up there, but one of them. And as the story goes, and this isn't from Kevin, the team asked him to move with them to Oklahoma, and he didn't want to. And I would imagine, as most Seattleites, there was a lot of bitterness about this move. I mean, I know a lot of them. And I'm curious now as to him calling these games and this series in Oklahoma City in particular when they're in it, when they're in the city, when they're in OKC. I just went Okie on you. I just called it the city. When they went Oklahoma City, when they are in OKC, what he thinks and what he feels. Maybe he's passed it all. Maybe there's nothing there to it. But anyway, just something kind of curious. Game 6. Do
you feel that they're going to win tonight? You think the city's going to win tonight?
The city. I do. Because of the emotion in the building, because of what happened in Game 3 and 4. But so much of that was because of Serge Ibaka. And now that the Spurs have adjusted to Ibaka's presence, brought in Matt Bonner, stretching out Ibaka, getting him out of the lane, allowing Parker, Ginobili, Green, Leonard, whoever wants to get into the lane, a little bit more success at it. I don't know what the adjustment is that Scott Brooks makes now, but if things continue in that way and there's not an adjustment made, then I would take the Spurs. Yeah, I would.
You would take the Spurs?
I would, but I have to feel that in some way, whether it's more Steven Adams or you go with a bigger lineup more often, but then you just lose your offense. I don't know. I'm going to trust Scott Brooks and say, you're an NBA head coach. Figure this out somehow. I don't know what it is, but I'm not a head coach. I think the Thunder win. Here's where I have an upset. I think it's a close game. I think it's the first close game into the fourth quarter and the deep stages of the fourth quarter in the series. Thunder win in a close game, force a Game 7. What do you think?
I think you can break it down any way you want. This Matt Bonner, small lineup, big lineup, whatever you want to do. But two things are going to determine it. Making shots for the city and whether or not Tony Parker gets in the lane. Those are from an offensive standpoint, those are the two things that are going to rule the day. And, so much of basketball gets overblown and overanalyzed. The paralysis of analysis of basketball is startling because a lot of times it just comes down to whether you're going to make shots or not. And Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, when they're making shots and they're rolling, and you said it, the energy in the building, you've got something special. Now, on the other side of it, though, the problem with Tony Parker getting into the lane isn't necessarily only Tony Parker. It's what he does, the decisions that he makes. And, again, we talked about this earlier. If somebody says to me, this is the way you have to play the ball screen, my answer is yes, because you have to do a number of things. The guy's an international player. He's a veteran playing with a veteran. So, you know what? I trap it, keep it on the side, but just don't let that kid get in the lane because he'll kill you. But, look, let's face it. I mean, if Durant and Westbrook go off, the city has as good a shot as anybody. I mean, great shot against anybody.
I will say this. You talk about Parker getting into the lane and the decisions he makes. I still at night have visions of Parker driving, kicking to the corner, and then the kick pass to the wing, which I don't think they've missed a three from there all series. It's the first pass to the corner, but then they all collapse on him, and then it's a wide-open Danny Green more often than not, just chilling out, or Manu on the wing. Or the pass to the corner, kick to the wing, kick to the other wing. Their ball movement is just so impressive, and it leaves their guys wide-open shots. It's incredible. Have you seen it? Have you seen a performance in the last 20 or 25 years better than an individual one, better than Russell Westbrook in Game 4 of that series?
Well, first of all, you and I have very different visions at night. I'm just going to tell you, because that does not enter my vision at all at night. I mean, ball movement is, way, way down the list of what I'm thinking about at night. No, you know what? I will say this. Sitting here in Indianapolis, the second half of what Paul George did in Game 5 with 31, 20, was as impressive as anything. But the thing about Russell Westbrook, and this isn't always the case with Westbrook, but in that game, he made basketball easy. Like, there's a philosophy of point guard play. When you bring the ball down the floor, just stop at the elbow. He stopped at the elbow, lifted up about 8 feet in the air, and drilled. I had to be 5 to 6 shots right from that spot, just making the game easy. And that, as you know better than anybody, that's not exactly his forte, making basketball easy. But it was an easy 40. It was a ridiculous, what's the right word, athletic feet, rebounding, passing, getting past, getting in. I mean, it was amazing. But
again, basketball, playing an incredible defense. I mean,
think about what he did athletically in that game.
That is his shot. Is just the 100 miles an hour down the court, the sudden stop, lift, and shoot. How do you do that? There's no way you maintain your balance to knock that shot in with the consistency he does, but he does. He always has.
You know how you do it? And this is really hard for kids. And when you look at Westbrook, his shoulders are always squared, and he's always moving forward or at least straight up. And he does it because he gets equal push off both feet, which is really difficult on the run, particularly for young kids. A lot of times, if you step into a shot, your front foot will push you backwards, or a lot of times your lead foot will push you the opposite way, meaning if I step in with my left foot, it'll push me right. But if you watch him, he's so powerful through his legs, his hips, and his rear end that he gets equal push and jumps straight up with square shoulders. That's what makes it so effective.
There you go. Dori Noka, Dan Dockich. You get a ding on that one.
Really? Is that good or bad?
I'm going to leave you with one thing here in the closing seconds. You ready? I'll let you react to it, too.
Yes.
The Chicago Cubs, your beloved Chicago Cubs, are auctioning off something. It is a folding chair. Why? Because Masahiro Tanaka sat in it. There are 3 bids so far, the highest $310.
You're talking about the rookie pitcher sat in it?
Sat in it, and now it's auctioned.
You know what? What just comes to mind is simply, that's the Cubs. What? I sold my shoes in Wrigley Field, in right field. That should be auctioned off, the spot I went barefoot at.
And with that,